Afternoon. Welcome to the Retail Management course. Today we are looking into the Block 3. Block 3 would be talking about various units which are related to the retail mix strategy. In the last session, we talked about the retail mix as a kind of a series of marketing decisions that a retailer takes with respect to merchandise, that is a product that they should have, what kind of location they should ensure that the stores should come out, what kind of a format fit according to the customer dynamics that you are catering to, according to the target audience. You also decide according to the store location what kind of a distance that you need to have from the point of manufacture to the point of distribution points, so that the customers can easily access it and can converge. We also look into various kind of communications which is related to the marketing mix, so as to encourage more customer footfall at the retail stores. In today's unit, we will look into the retail location strategy, which is one of the most important aspect of the retail mix strategy. Now, what is important for if you look into a store-based retail outlet, location is almost related to the success of the store and in terms of its profitability, in terms of its capacity to sustain in the marketplace. Now, when such kind of stakes are there in terms of business, in terms of business profitability, in terms of customer accessibility, the location factor becomes a very critical issue for a retailer because, as you know, the location has certain things which are built into it in terms of the cost factor, for example, the cost of land, the cost of location, where you want to put up. You would not put up any random place. Yes, independent stores can come up at random places, but then point is they are in terms of their investment also would not be that high. But then at the same time, the retailer has to make some kind of a judgment in terms of what kind of customers could be accessing that. So accessibility is another important factor with respect to location. Accessibility only when people can access those stores physically and reach out to them. Then you can talk about the kind of footfalls that you can expect, depending upon the kind of aura that you have created, or the positioning that you have created, or the image that you have created through a very successful integrated marketing campaign, as is relevant to a particular retail outlet. Whereas a wrong location decision can really upset the business prospects of the retailer. And even if you have the best of the interiors, the kind of facilities in terms of space, but if it is located somewhere in an area where people the accessibility is not there, people do not know about it, or they find it very cumbersome, or there's a lot of congestion to meet out, then in that case people would not find it convenient to go. But at the same time, you will find that most of the retail stores in India, they are also there's a huge convergence in terms of districts or the neighborhood in which the retail outlets need to come out. So retailers also look into that what are the most commonly frequented places with respect to, let's say, if I want to buy something on an electronic item. So I would look into a city where electronic gadgets are sold more. So you'll find a lot many stores who are involved in it. So it gives me a choice as a customer. So obviously, a retail store, whether they like it or not, would may consider that location to be prime into their retail locational decisions. Now, we talked about the cost factor. It goes without saying that the locational decisions impact what is the cost of putting up a store. In that comes the major cost is that of land. During COVID times, we realized that how non-store retailing can come to the rescue and overhead costs can be reduced because you don't require the land. So, but at the same time, when you talk about the regular retailing outlets, wherever you're putting up a store, the location obviously would have the land, would occupy the land. So where does it come? Whether it comes under a corporation, a municipality, what are the laws that are there, what kind of rentals are there, what kind of taxes are levied. That is a very critical part of which contributes towards the cost of the land. In your cities where you are staying, you will find that the land prices significantly vary according to the degree of importance that people have in that area. It could be a business related area, it could be near to a plant, it could be near to a bus station or whatever. So, depending on that, the land prices get calibrated. So, that is an important thing if you want to locate your store in those places, it will have some kind of a say. Secondly, the transportation. What kind of transport facilities can the does the location have in terms of accessibility? How close is it to the railway station? If you talk about Bombay, when you go from Church Gate to Mira Road or Bhayandar, you will find on the western lines across on the east and the west. The moment you step out of the station, you find huge stores come investment in terms of retail stores which are coming up. With the big ones, you can have hypermarkets, supermarkets, as well as individual markets, right? Which come up. Now, why is that? And they would charge a bomb. The rates in Bombay can go into crores. Why people are ready to put that kind of money? Because in terms of the transportation, it is easy point to access, right? And obviously, the people would find it easier to come, and it can create more footfalls. Secondly, is when you talk about location dynamics, is the manpower. When you're talking about the manpower, we are looking into what kind of people who are there who would like to come. Because understand, yesterday I was talking about how critical is your people who are handling the store are critical. If you find it at locations which are easy for them to transact, because they may be finding out that the transportation cost may be high, until unless the retailer says that okay, I would like to fund you or I will give you some kind of a transportation cost. But even after that, they would like to see far-flung located retail outlets may not find the right kind of manpower also who can be taken, because they are on a regular basis, and you go, and the timings of the retailers can sometimes go beyond 12 hours, 13 hours. So after that, people do get fatigued. So that becomes a critical thing for people to decide whether they would like to work in those locations where the retail outlets are or not. And next comes the foot traffic. When you talk about the foot traffic, we're looking into both the vehicular as well as the pedestrian traffic, which is again a very critical part of it. And as the urbanization process is happening, the empty spaces are getting seriously disrupted by the planning coming. You must be seeing how the metro, stations are being brought up in various cities across the India in Indian metros, in major metros like Bangalore, Chennai, and all that. But you'll find that even those kind of uh, avenues should impact or will impact the traffic which is there. If it could also lead to a congestion. It could also lead to a discomfort. Now, such kind of things in terms of accessibility also affects the even if the store is good enough, even if you're put up at the right location, over a period of time, maybe a flyover has come, people are using the flyover, they don't want to come. So what will you do? You lose out on that particular set of people. So the vehicular traffic and the pedestrian traffic is of critical importance. As I told you just a few minutes before of the Bombay, the local trains stations, you find people, the retailers find it easier to occupy near the east or the west part of the, let's say, Bandra East or Bandra West. You'll find major stores coming up nearby, because they give you, if you talk about Santa Cruz or if you talk about Andheri, there's a huge amount of concentration of retail stores, because that's what helps, because the traffic is quite high. It attracts more customers, and in terms of the footfalls, it goes up significantly. So they are able to attract more people. Once the people come in, then only the interiors or the kind of merchandise, the kind of the services that you are giving is of importance. Another important thing is that with the level of development, you also need to know today people have opened up outlets where you do not have proper parking spaces, right? So in that case, what happens? The people feel even if you want to go and shop, they would feel threatened to park their things. Sometimes if you're in a bigger city, your cars can be towed away, right? So that creates a lot of disruption. So today, when we have large scale hypermarkets, supermarkets, have not only to talk in terms of only merchandise, but they also have to think of these sundry services in terms of parking lots, facilities, security. All these things would be necessary in order to create more traffic attractiveness among the people and to create more customer traffic at a given store. Going to the business volume. Now, as I just, this is again related to the location. If you find that more people are frequenting that, they are, look at the bustling business districts. If you talk about Chandni Chowk area, right, Karol Bagh area of Delhi, you don't need to tell anything. People are automatically over there. People from various parts of the country, they may not be drawn from their trading areas, catchment areas. People can come from across the country and would like to come and buy. We know many people in Sarojini market. I have seen that people from the nearby areas, from Gurgaon, Haryana, and Noida, they come over, they buy in some huge quantities because they get apparels at a very cheaper price, and they go and sell it in their interior markets where they have put up their maybe the stores in tier 2 or tier 3, even in the towns. So obviously the business volume in certain markets also critical for you to decide whether you want to put your retail outlet there or not. Sometimes you may not even decide that, well, I don't want to be in the cluster. That's also perfectly all right. But then it's calculated, you have to take a calculated decision in order to put up your retail store. High traffic is obviously, we know it's a high area, but then we have to be compatible with the site characteristics. When I talked about site characteristics, just now I told you that with the phase of development, we have to understand that a particular site may be frequented today, tomorrow it may be ignored. Or you come up with various zoning facilities and one-way traffic and such kind of things could be instituted in that area, then making it uncomfortable for people to access. So the traffic is a big issue. Now, coming to when you talk in terms of the location decisions, let's look at the factors which influence the location decisions, right? Obviously, goes without saying something for the population. How is the consumer population in that given area? Is it a very heavily concentrated area or is it a sparsely populated area? Your decision to put up a store in that location would be driven primarily by the population. But then again, in that population, you could be looking at, if you look into the demographic profiles, you may find that they may belong to you, they may not belong to your target audiences. So that's when you need to understand that with the population that you are talking about, how much of that really relates to your target audience. Next, we go to the something called the city trading area. Trading areas are like, as the name suggests, is the place where people travel or where they are drawn to the retail outlet. So for a retail outlet, how much people are coming from a given area, that becomes, or the radius in which we are talking about, which we call as the primary trading area. That means if I'm putting up a store in Karol Bagh or in Chandni Chowk, that area which is contributing to the customers, those are called the trading area. That could be, of course, there could be primary trading area and there could be secondary trading. That means people from far off can also come. Just now I was giving the example that this area is known for such things. So people come from other areas also. So there can be overlaps. But idea is basically if it is in the trading area, then it makes easier for people, the store, in terms to attract the customers. Obviously, we look into, as I told you, in the population, we also look into the next important thing is the purchasing power. When we talk about the population divide, the demographic divide, their spending capacity, is it a posh locality? Is it a very, where the middle income families thrive more? Is it a residential area? Is it a business district? Is it something related which is very close to, let's say, a commercial district? Or is it close to known for a particular merchandise? It's known as the electronic city or a electronic market or a apparel market. Then the purchasing power of the people can be done according, can be, related to that. So you need to know that if it's a high-end thing, I have to put up a store if I'm having a merchandise of high-end products. So you know that the purchasing power of people will be mostly the posh areas. Would they like to travel that distance? Now you have to create sufficient amount of reason in your marketing communication so that people can be drawn to that particular store. We'll talk about that sometime later in the other units as we go. Another thing is the competitive space. Apart from your stores, what are the other competitors who are there in that vicinity, right? And what is the cost of operating? What are the overhead costs of operating? How do you maintain that? Even you have to look at this from the locational point of view. You have to, your warehouses are spread out. You have to consider how much cost you would incur in maintaining that, right? Those kind of things would be important in taking the location decisions. I was talking about the zoning part. Yes, which zone is it? Come in a commercial zone, so it doesn't come in that zone. There are certain limitations which could be put. So location, you have to comply with the law of the land. We could also be looking into if there's a flyover coming up, if there's a metro station coming up, how does it affect? Many a times it has happened, you do not foresee what could be the possible development in future. So in sync with the urban development, you have to plan out the location. Sometimes you may have to close those locations and move out to other locations depending upon the zoning or the legal complication that would come up. And primarily, you are not able to draw so much of traction from the customers, right? So you need to also evaluate the kind of traffic that could come, how they are accessing, what kind of facilities are you providing, which could be influencing the decision to visit that particular outlet. Now let's move to the what kind of locations can we categorize the locations into such things. In India, you'll find that there are three categories that we talk about. One is called the isolated stores, unplanned markets, and planned markets. So as you can see here, isolated stores are mostly the individual stores which would come out. They would be randomly picked up, looking at the flexibility. They could be kirana stores, but mostly they would be low on rent, maybe less traffic, but then they cater to a particular community in a given area. You must have seen in certain far-flung colonies where you do not have a single shop, these isolated stores can come and handy. But at the same time, they also have certain limitations. The limitations could be the cost of, because these are small outlets and mostly the kirana stores, they don't employ so much of their advertising cost or the promotional cost could be very high because the visibility may not be there, right? So people have to, they are isolated as the name suggests. So you will find that it is difficult to create that attraction towards the, so you have to do something out of, the store has to do something out of the blue or in terms of what is not traditionally used to attract, to create more consumer pull into the stores, which is a quite a daunting task in given market. But as you know, the development factor goes up, you may find few other isolated stores may also come up. So that may also give rise to a kind of, okay, apart from one, you must have seen food and beverages counters like that. They come up. They start off as street vendors, but they end up becoming store-based outlets. Like so, you have something like a Madras Cafe, which comes up. So that's possible. Unplanned markets are basically again a very significant visible location which is seen in India, thanks to the unorganized retail which we were talking earlier, that you will find markets in India are totally, mostly are unplanned. Our cities and towns are do not follow any particular. I'm sorry to say that we do not follow any pattern of growth. If you go to a place like Chandigarh, which is a planned city, right? You will find that they make very if you see urban development plans, they look into how to develop a particular city, giving all the facilities, looking into uh, the the the, uh, the kind of traffic that it could have, the less congestion, how they are connected. During monsoon, you'll find there are certain places where there is accumulation of water, sewage, running water, how that is being treated. These are all part of urban development. So when you talk about unplanned markets, you find unfortunately you are located in places which can face these kind of situations. So if you open up those stores without taking proper of your market, the trading area that we were just talking about, then it can lead to chaos. But then some of them have built a reputation of being a particular store which has a say in the marketplace, has built up its reputation. Some people even go to that store. So having said that, do unplanned markets thrive? Yes, they do thrive, because it is a kind of evolution the customers are acquainted with. If you talk people of the earlier generations, you find convenience stores, they're very unplanned. They come up in any Tom, Dick, and Harry places, leading to congestions, looking to various other. It may be located in such corners which you never thought of that you would plan to go. But then they do rolling business because they have got a certain kind of very a patronizing kind of a target customers. What is patronizing? People who visit, the frequency of visit to those stores is quite high, and there's a certain amount of credibility which is there. Because in unplanned markets, what happened? They look into these random out stores which are there. They give a lot of importance to the human factor to it. So they may not give the best of the environment to shop, but then obviously they are very crowded. They do not give you the liberty, flexibility in terms of parking lots, but then they're able to draw uh, the customer. Look at Karol Bagh or at Chandni Chowk areas which we are talking about. Even Sarojini Market or Fashion Street in Mumbai. These could be unplanned markets. Planned markets are far more better in terms of it, and that is what is going to catch on going forward, because customers are again today are not only, as if you remember, retail outlets are not only areas where you go and only buy products. It is a kind of an engagement that you do of which I was talking about, that today shopping should not be a kind of a stress. In planned markets, they do a lot of research in creating a very stress-free environment as far as the shopping part is concerned. So they talk about customer experiences. They invest into interiors, creating an environment where people like to go spend time. So if you talk about malls, supermarkets, there are people who get drawn to it. They want to spend some quality time over there. They want to have a place where you can share with their friends and so on and so forth. And obviously such kind of malls, they will require to put in a lot of efforts in terms of planning the entire store formats, how what kind of stores need to come out. This should be high end, low end, whatever it is, or moderate end stores. It draws a lot. If you talk about the various kind of malls which are there, which in the tier ones metros of India, if you go and analyze what makes those locations work out. In fact, those malls have created such a hype that people are drawn. They come from other areas to just to be there, right? Which means what? They're able to they have to offer to the customers a better experiences. And those malls, in supermarkets, you can have multiple stores, and it can be given on rentals. So you can share the land cost, which is land is a very important part of the costing. So they can only share that, and you can have better facilities to be provided, like parking, cafe. You can have street vendors which are opened up. You can have road shows there. A lot many other things can be done. A lot of parking area. You can have parks within that also. They're huge, so they can provide a kind of a stress-free environment, and obviously a shopping experience which gives these kind of amenities. Customers would be more inclined towards that. So if you see the urban public, they would love to be in those kind of locations, right? So that is one realization which is happening, and as people are more convenience oriented, as they want to say, I want to be in a stress-free environment. I would love to be a part where I should not feel stressed while shopping. Perhaps black markets give you that kind of a avenue. So that is what you talk in terms of the nature of locations. Next, we move into these locations. Would also be, it's very critical to make an analysis in terms of what kind of products and goods have. I mean, do they have any kind of a relationship with the goods and services that you provide? Yes, it does. Products based on the consumption pattern of people can be converted into convenience goods, shopping goods, and specialty goods. Now, what determines these parameters? They determines in terms of the usage parameters and the purchase patterns. You find convenience goods are consumed at a regular, so there is a frequent purchase. So, for example, groceries and staples. It's a regular item which you buy in a given month. Okay, what is your frequency of visit? Almost higher than any other shopping other brands. For example, apparels or electronic goods or a car. If you see the frequency of your visit to those stores which have these products, it varies significantly. Many times, for grocery and stores, would you like to travel a longer distance to do it? Perhaps not. But if you want to buy a car, you would like to go to a showroom which could be pretty far off. So does it affect the location? Does it affect? Perhaps yes, right? If you're looking into jewelry, it's a shopping good. We do not buy almost regularly, but yes, but the frequency may not be as high as in case of the convenience goods. But yes, there is certain regularity. So you have to ensure that the store location should be in such a manner where these customers can actually access them and can buy. Now, when you talk about the decision area, we also look into if you're talking about specialty goods, again, you have to look into the location, the surrounding, the what kind of products that need to be bought, are to be upscale, high-end product. Then the look, the investment, all these things, play a very important role. And also your vicinity, people who are in the competitive space, who are the other retail outlets which are there, that also sometimes defines the success of a location. Like retail strategy, we have to understand one thing, that they have to align obviously with the corporate and business strategies. And of course, business strategies have to further dovetail into the functional areas of strategy. So when you talk about the retail strategy, the first thing is that you have to define it from your vision of the company. What is the company's vision in terms of their products, right? What kind of a business they are in? What kind of a environmental environment is there? What are the factors of environment which they can control? I mean, not control, but yes, they can attend to. But internal factors can be controlled, like the micro factors can be controlled. But if you talk about macro factors, perhaps it's uncontrollable. So, but then do they create an impact on your business decisions? Yes, they do. So that needs to. So, is as a company, would you like to be only restricted to the metros, or would you like to go to the other parts? Obviously, if you look into the growth strategy, we look into market penetration, or product development, or market development, or diversification. These could be the possible ways in which you could expand. So, what defines the corporate strategy? And then you get down to the business level strategy, where you look into, okay, if I want to get into a particular area of business, what kind of a business is it? What kind of products and services? Is it a service area? Is it a product area? Then products, again, categories are there. Is it a shopping good or a convenience good? Because that will define as to how the customers are going to come. Our customers are going to come to that particular outlet and buy products. So their shopping behavior is linked to that. So, from a business perspective, you see what kind of product categories. If it is a convenience goods, I have to, if I'm getting into that, I have to provide more stores maybe, right? Thereby my investment has to be accordingly planned. Whether I go for a direct investment, whether I go for a franchising model, that's another part of the game which we talked about in retail formats. But my product and the customer is defining the location, right? And if you're talking about in terms of, let's say, what kind of market that we are looking at. Are we looking into a very high-end market? Are we looking into a market which is frequently where the numbers are very high? So over there, I have to ensure that my store location should be such that maximizes the amount of people who could be attracted to the store and what kind of product that I'm doing, from shopping goods or convenience goods or retail. So everywhere the bottom line would be that how much is my target audience is interested to come and buy products from us. So if you're able to cater to that, perhaps according to your product categories and the location dynamics, perhaps you will be able to uh, suffice in the marketplace. Going forward, we should also look into we look into what could be the functional strategies that could be there. Functional strategies, as the name suggests, would be basically with respect to your technology, the HR, the finance, the manpower planning which you need to do, which in order to reach out to your so where is the production facilities? Where are your distribution outlets? Where are your retailers? Where are your distribution warehouses or transportation? All these kind of things would be critically analyzed depending upon what kind of consumer goods and what is the location decision area that you're planning to do. So if you want to put up, let's say if you're talking about shopping goods, I may not be there in a very, very congested area. I would have to look into certain other locations where I would get my target audience, which could be closer to any, let's say, point of transit. Let's say it could be closer to a railway station, it could be closer to a local railway station. I'll give you the example of Bombay. Same thing also holds good for other metro station. These days metros are very common thing. You'll find that all these things can be very easily tracked if you look into the kind of development that is taking place. All these functional areas or strategies work on one thing, that if you are a company which is a local company, in that case, maybe you do not need that kind of a area of presence in terms of promoting yourself. But if it's a global company, for example, McDonald's outlet, they would be very clear saying that okay, they would spell out. They move out for franchising, so they will say that okay, look into the trading area. What is the catchment area? What kind of people are coming? What kind of area, age-wise classification that you can do, and then provide. So you are doing an area assessment. Then you are getting into putting up the store. Okay, will that be manufactured? Where will your manufacturing center be? If your food outlets are there, have to be manufactured there and then. Again, your raw materials. Where will you get your raw materials from? Are those vendors have been worked out? What is the transit time that does it take? All these are a part of the entire supply chain that optics that needs to be worked out. And obviously, it also affects your overhead costs. And I also gave you the example of how manpower can be a very, very tricky sum when it comes to this. Because if you're having people who are coming to you, maybe they cannot afford to stay in that location where you have put up your retail store. So if they're coming, how convenient is it, right? Or how critical it is. If it's very far-flung areas and if the travel time is very high, you may lose out on a very, very important manpower. So HR decisions have to be taken with respect to that. Financial, as I told you, financial decisions are critical because in terms of the cost factor, which we are going to be talking about, how much money needs to be put up in a given store, how much, and you also calculate the ROI, right? What is the amount of, we'll get into those kind of things as we move into the locational assessment and the retail locational theories which are there. This is a very important part of it because when you're talking in terms of locational parameters, we have to draw out a plan in terms of how effectively we can not only reach out but also achieve our goals in terms of profitability. Because if your revenues are not coming in despite all the effort that you make, the problem be the location is not going to contribute to the store profitability and that becomes a problem. Hence, when we look into the techniques of locational assessment, we look into something called the judgment. Judgment is a more common parameter which we look into in terms of the location assessment. How do you assess that? You assess it by your gut feel. Mostly, okay, you feel that you observe a lot of vicarious learning is there where you observe that a lot of people are moving in a particular area, what kind of a profile these customers are from, okay, and then we see that okay, this is an area which has got a tremendous potential, and we scan the environment, we see the competition there, and we see that okay, even if the competition could be high, there are too many people who are coming in. So would that that makes sense for us to put a store in that location. So that's judgmental, but judgmental is a kind of a you could uh, take some kind of risk. Of course, every business has a risk, but it makes sense to be more to have experience built into taking those kind of things rather than getting into a random decision of putting up a location. So ideally, in your marketing team or in your strategic team, you need to have a person who has a local knowledge about that area, who can understand the population, understand people, understand the behavioral pattern, and in suggesting and also looking into the competition, how the competition is behaving. Can we have analogous parameters, successful parameters to put up those kind of scenarios? Analog is another area which we look into for the locational assessment. There's something called, even if you don't do judgmental, then you can go. Judgmental is more experience driven, and it could have problems. So what we can look into is that we can also look into a very systematic screening process of doing a locational assessment. So what could you be doing? For example, you could be looking into the size of the market. You use general thumb rules for assessing what percentage of the target audience population is staying in that area where you are planning to bring up your store. So there's a location, you get enough amount of population. Now, what are their shopping habits? What are the competitors? Who are the competitors in that area? What is the frequency of visits to those stores? Now, these are something which need to be deep stick. You need to understand, and uh, the kind of customers who are talking about who are coming to those stores. We'll also look into indicators such as the households, the individual income, the demographic and economic parameters. We look into whether the buying capacity, how much do that, what's an average sale that you would do. Now, this is a lot of this has to be data driven. And these days, when you talk about data, you can use business analytics tools to assess what customer group, right? And but then the data cannot be captured in an unplanned store. It is only where you have a technology or where you have a manual documentation happening, perhaps then it is possible. So, but then at the same time, when you make an assessment, you have to understand that whether it's a proposed location or an existing location. If it is an existing location, the location at the assessment can be done in terms of what is the current flow of people, how many people are coming, despite being in a very location in a market area which is considered to be quite good, but you are not getting the right kind of people who are walking in. There could be, so one has to, as a retailer, has to understand what are the underlying principles that goes into this. So it's a very systematic screening process that you can take up for assessing the locational importance. Other one could be the analog, where we talk about, okay, fine, in my vicinity, in my area, which are the other stores which are thriving. For example, restaurants. If you see near railway station, restaurants are coming up. Why it is so? Or near bus stops, you'll find that most of the small individual stores come up. It is primarily because they know that, okay, these are the people who would like to buy from here and are most likely to utilize. So they put up their stores there. You may not find very planned stores, but unplanned stores definitely. Some of them do put planned stores out there. For example, in Kamats, I have seen in Bombay, they're very close to the Andheri East West. So you know that people who are traveling, the Mumbai traffic is more of the office going traffic, right? So they use, and the local trains are like the lifeline of Mumbai. So they know that if they go early morning, they have to go out, they have to have breakfast. So somebody can have a breakfast. So there could be would-be centers. The Kamas would be having, again, lot many industrial estates are strewn all along the area. So during the day also, their customer traffic is depends upon the working population who are visiting them. Some of them would have lunch and all those things. So they curate their products according to that, and the location becomes a big advantage to their profitability, the store profitability, as well as the store is able to attract the more people, right? So If you want to put up a store, if you want to be a food service provider, would you like to put up something in that area? But then point is, how would you differentiate yourself from the other players? Because that is also very critical. Competitive space is fine. Competitive space also raises many. They would raise entry barriers. So you'll find that in a given area, the nearby stores is able to grab more customer traction than you. So what is that defines it? If you go to tourist centers, you must have seen how they entice at strategic locations. Your travel, tour and travel, they have a strategic understanding. They go and park their vehicles and they know that, okay, this particular area will get. But there are some customers who fall for it and buy. But at the same time, they also look into what kind of differentials does it do in terms of the commercial district in the which is there in the center. So customers can be very finicky about it. So let's understand one. Let's not undermine the capability of a consumer to see whether that what you are providing in terms of price parity, in terms of services, in terms of quality of product, are you trying to just take them for a ride or are you really adhering to those things? So differential analysis has to be done in terms of what defines success in a given market so that that can be put into your success plans when you are looking into the location parameters. The other one could be where you're looking at the profitability figures. I told you that any location decision is directly linked to the retail format performances. So, where is it? How is it able to attract the attention of the people? How many people are coming on a given day? What they are purchasing? What time of the day they are coming, so that will decide as to when should I keep it open. Should I keep it to the going beyond the evening hours? Should I close it earlier or should I open up early in the morning? Now these dynamics very critically depends upon the store location. So as a retailer, one has to understand what defines what is the, so you can use regression for example for this way to understand how the marketer can be using the profitability is depend on so many parameters. What kind of products, the kind of customers, what kind of spends they have, how are you creating an encouraging environment? So how are they are oriented? Are they correlated directly or they are not directly related? So you can put it into some kind of a, you can use regression to understand that the store profitability is fine, but end of the day, I have to see whether the customers are they spending enough amount of money? Am I able to generate amount of sales in a given store? Right? When we talk about market analysis, which is again a very important part of your tools for analyzing the company location parameters. I think where you are drawing, where your stores are, what is your trading area? What is the trading area? As I told you before, these are the catchment areas from where your people are coming. Sometimes they may be a part of your target audience, sometimes may not be a part of your target audience, but then they are part of the catchment area. So sometimes you create a word of mouth factor based on which people want to come. So when you if you create an thing that okay, you are a discount store and you give quality goods as well as discounted prices, okay, may not be having a very well laid out infrastructure maybe, but you could have the footfalls. There are some kind of indicators in that as well. You must have seen in terms of food, certain vendors of these street vendors. You must have seen they are able to generate more profits than they wind up faster and leave than the others, right? So like the chart walas and all those things. There's a quite learning out there in terms of the location. So what they have done now, they have started urban centers have started getting into like the Delhi heart, or you create street zones where the street food is available to the retailers, to the customers. Sorry, so these retailers can put up in those their outlets in those and can leverage out of them. You'll find even some caravans which come with their entire van and occupy the space, give it to them. Most of these things are very trendy. They get into junk food. I've seen a lot of things which is happening on these parameters. So when you do market analysis, you have to understand where would your location be depending on the area the kind of trading area, what kind of people are aware of it, how many are coming to those places, where are you located. That's a very, very critical part of the market analysis. We also look into the data that we need to get from what kind of customers are walking in terms of age group, in terms of some demographic profile, in terms of income. So that can be a kind of a market size analysis that you can talk about. Another thing which can be looked into in terms of looking into the uh, retail saturation coefficient, what is called RSI. What is it? Is coefficient, saturation coefficient. It talks about the kind of, it's a coefficient which talks about the potential sales that can come from a per square foot area, right? For a given product line. That means what, if my store is coming, how am I getting a return from per square foot area for the product that I'm selling? So if I'm into apparels, per square feet area, what is my area is that particular merchandise or that particular product category, how much revenue is it generating per square feet area. So that talks about if it is, so there's so the particular quantitative calculation that they do, where they talk in terms of what is the demand that you get from a particular area divided by the maximum that you can talk in terms of. So it's a kind of a ratio that you work out. And if it is the maximum amount of capability that the market can give you, it could be depending upon the population, the capacity, the per capita income parameter, how much do they come, and amount of space that is we are making available for space. So you're talking in terms of a kind of a demand estimation, and what is the maximum demand that you can think of, and what is the thing which is happening for you. So you can work out whether it's your retail store is saturated or there is an area of sale. So there could be a quantitatively your values could go between 0 to 1. So if it is one, that means what, you're mostly going towards saturation. That means the maximum amount of thing you're able to achieve. But if it is less than 0.5, then there is a certain area which can still be explored in terms of your square feet area, in terms of achieving the profit margins or the in terms of returns. So that's a very interesting technique tool to assess the retail store profitability depending upon the location where you are making it available, right? Because it will be drawing upon the population that you are talking in terms of. We would also look into something called the certain theories, retail locational theories, which are important. If we talk about it, we look into the classic thing is our quality distance theory. Now, what is the quality distance theory thrive on? It talks in terms of a correlation between how much distance a person would be willing to travel to buy a quality product, given a certain quality that you are providing, right? Now, to some extent, they say that the potential to come to a particular outlet, it depends on few things. It is directly correlated, right, to the quality of the product that you are buying, and it is inversely proportional to the distance that there is. Which means what? With lesser distance, if you're getting quality products, I would frequent it, right? So what does that tell you in terms of retail locational theory? This theory talks in terms of that if I put quality products and I make it available in a location which is easier for people to access. I give you certain examples, like the food outlets or the apparels or the luxury items or the supermarkets or the malls. Malls may not be really located in the congestion areas because they require huge space. So they could be located even in the suburban areas of a metro. It's whether in fact, there have been multiple malls which are spread outside. People travel that distance because they know that in that mall there would be stores which give very quality products. Another thing which you will also see that it may be it's a planned thing. You will also find that thing happening in case of an unplanned area. You'll find that people, why do they go to the Chandni Chowk in Delhi? Because it was for certain product categories. If I go there, I'll be able to get better products according to my requirements. As a result of it, for them, they define quality. They get quality, maybe quality is price driven. Yes, it's possible. You get good quality at a lower price, but you have to travel more. Understand the kind of attraction that the retail location has to have in terms of creating that customer pull. Are you getting it? Which means what? And many a times, if it's a planned thing, yes, you can think of a very, you can invest in promotional techniques, you can use digital media, you can use Instagrams, and so on and so forth. But in case of an unplanned, it is mostly by the warm factor, the word of mouth. And we find that they make huge profits out of that, right? So that's one thing which you look into in terms of the quality and distance theory. Land value theory, where it talks in terms of is how's the urban land usage. It talks in in urban areas how it is being used and the economic activity given in that area, right? It's the economic activity area. If you find that there are good merchandise material, um, people are coming to that area, and I would like to go there. So obviously, you'll find just now I gave you the example of the Chandni Chowk or the Sarojini Market. That's why is that because they know that the land over there, if I put up a store, it is going to cost me a bomb. It's going to be very expensive because that economic activity is very strong in that area. You want to put up a store in Karolbagh? Very tough. It's close to very, is in one of the most frequented places, extremely crowded. You go to Crawford Market in Mumbai, extremely crowded, right? It's so because the land value again is dependent on the kind of customers who are coming. Those customers could be coming from the nearby areas, from your target audience catchment areas, or beyond that. Mumbai attracts people from all over the vicinity. So people travel longer distances to come and do that. It's same thing in Delhi also. Same thing in Chennai. Same thing in Hyderabad. Same thing could be in Bangalore. You'll find in Bangalore the apparel markets do have this kind of thing. Auto parts. Pune is very much known for engineering products. So you would go all the distance to get those products. So there's a certain dynamics which play in terms of the land value parameter on the land value theory, right? So how you are utilizing that land, how it is great, and creating an economic activity built around it. So if you are taking that particular land, yes, your expense it could be an expensive proposition, but it is worth taking that. So you get certain kind of a guarantee of sorts from these kind of outlets. Going on to the other areas where you look into is the retail market identification. Again, retail market identification thrives on, when you look into the profile of the customers, which I was telling you. Who is your customer? That I think is the very cardinal principle for any marketer. So is the case for a retail outlet. So if I'm going targeting a customer who has averse to a high-end store but looking for quality, giving them a high-end store in a location which is high-end, even if you provide it, may work, may not work, right? So you have to understand this by doing very intensive surveys. So you can, if you go to one of the ways which you can do is existing stores which are there. You you listen to what these people talk about. What are they thinking, looking at? What kind of products they are buying? How much they are spending on an average? What kind of products they are buying, and from which areas they are buying? You'll be surprised to know that they spend, if they are very convinced, they would spend to the tune whatever is required. So when you talk in terms of the retail market identification, we are looking into the customers, how do they interface. So we talk in terms of point of sale queries which are there. What kind of do people buy from coupons? Is it coupons which are creating? Is it a family which is visiting that outlet? These are certain things which you can work out in terms of the customer profiling. You can also look into are these two-wheelers owners? Are they are four-wheeler owners? That gives a certain profile. So you know that these kind of people frequent certain kind of stores. Of course, we can go wrong in that also, but at the same time, it gives you certain insight into your what should be your customer spotting campaign. Customer spotting helps you in the retail market identification. The next thing we talk about is the spatial model. Now, in the spatial model, I would like to tell you that there is, if we talked about the distance factor, right? Now, spatial interaction model talks in terms of how does a customer look into, okay, from the point of view of, if I'm buying a particular product, where is it coming from? Where am I getting it, right? And how much transportation cost am I the customer is investing in order to access those outlets. So you talk in terms of the attractiveness of a store. Why would any, just now I was telling you, why would anybody go to a particular mall? Why create that kind of an avenue? So it talks about the pull in terms of the what the space that you are talking in terms. So we are talking about a distance factor, distance from which is impacting your sales of that particular area of that particular store, right? It is attracted by it is given. So when you talk about the spatial model, what does it help you? It helps you in estimating how much demand a given outlet is likely to draw from each market area. So we're talking about how much demand can I get from a given outlet, depending upon its ability to attract people despite the distance factor. So a person always calculates this. I've seen where people go to, I want to buy from that particular market because I get it cheaper, or I will go for that market because I get quality products. If I'm going to this particular mall, I will get the best of the things. So they calculate that and they go. So this is something which you need to assess. The demand is dependent on so many factors. So what are those factors, and how do you build in that the demand at a given outlet from the ability of that particular store to attract the customers, right? So obviously the customers look into uh, how much is what kind of products, what is the demand for the products. More people are, again you will find that how many people are frequenting that particular place also. That is also very very important. That is it a place where I'm going and others are not there. It's a furniture store. There's some furniture stores people are thronging, in other areas they may not. What is the perception of that? Even that can impact the demand of the particular store in terms of attracting the right kind of customers. One variant of spatial interaction is that of the geo-demographic marketing approach. So sometimes, even if you are making things available in a given market, you may find that the customers may not be able to attract. So what kind of, so you have to find out what promotional techniques can you build into that so as to create that attractiveness of that store. And demographically, you have to segment it. You have to do a light of slicing and dicing of your the demographic profiles of customers and who are coming, how much they are spending. Based on that, you curate products and those products to cater to the markets. Then what happens? You'll be able to get your square feet area return from that particular store. So location plays a very important role in terms of the demographic profile of your retail locations. So this is what is being in charts which we are looking into in today's session. So to summarize, we will look into the location is a very important factor as far as retail success is concerned. There are various factors which are impacting in terms of the business, the cost, the kind of people, in terms of the traffic flows, so the kind of facilities. All these things play a role in terms of deciding where would the retail locations and the types of location, whether it should be a planned, unplanned, or whether it should be an isolated store. Maybe isolated stores cannot, it gives you a lot of time to make up for the, but then it gives you inroads, it gives you penetration. So it depends on the market conditions and what kind of frameworks, what kind of qualitative and quantitative tools that are available to assess the locational dynamics and the locational assessment so that your retail stores can contribute towards the retail store profitability, right? So with this, I end today's session. Thank you so much for your patience here.